Hey everyone, welcome back to the Coaching Catalyst YouTube channel. And I'm here with Chris, and we're talking about the value builder, and pretty excited to cover the stuff that we're going to cover today, Chris. I know everybody else probably is too.
Absolutely, and I hope they are. What I want to talk about today is where savvy entrepreneurs spin their focus. They actually focus on one metric, and it's not the metric that most business owners focus on. Most business owners focus on profit, not value. So I want to show you kind of the difference and why it's so important. So let's talk about value. At the risk of oversimplifying a complex science, evaluation comes down to one calculation, Ron. What multiple of your profit is a buyer willing to pay? So I want to show you how this works. So let's take a hypothetical example of a company with $800,000 in pre-tax profit. So the standard multiple for this example is 3.5. So that would value the company at $2.8 million. That's a pretty healthy business. It's got great profit, a healthy value. Now, business owners and entrepreneurs that focus strictly on profit can take this $2.8 million value and they can focus real heavy and increase that profit by $100,000. But when they do that, that brings your company's total profit to $900,000 with a 3.5 multiple. That means your business went up from 2.8 million to 3.15 million. Still a healthy business. But at Value Builder, we focus on increasing the multiple in the business so that $800,000 pre-tax profit in the first example, when we focus on the value drivers of a business, we increase that multiple from 3.5 to 7.1, which takes that $2.8 million business and makes it worth 5.68 million. But what if we did both? No entrepreneur should only focus on one or the other. The value is important, but so is profit. So if we focused on both and we did the same things that the first entrepreneur did and got that $900,000 up, but added that focus on value, that same company is now worth almost $6.4 million. And it's now 2.5 times more valuable.
Now, I know hey, Chris, I know this is something that you're going to explain, but okay, so define why the difference between 3.5 and 7.1. What made that happen, or is that what we're going to talk about today?
We're going to go into all the details of how that comes into play. But it comes down to how the business is structured, and it takes a business from being unsellable or barely sellable to an asset that other people want. And that's important, not just for business owners that are actually looking to sell their business, but it's important for business owners in general. When you focus strictly on profit, that's great. You have a profitable business today. But what does your future look like tomorrow? When you focus on value, you open up your options. When you focus on both increasing your profit and increasing your multiple and making your company more valuable, you have a more profitable day and a more prosperous future ahead of you. That's why we say value is the owner metric. And that's where savvy entrepreneurs obsess. Your friends and your families, your peers, they all probably tell you just want to grow your revenue at all costs, right? That's what a lot of us hear. That's the way we all judge companies. The bigger companies are more important. How many employees do you have? How much revenue do you have? And that's our judgment. That's what a lot of people use as judgment against companies. I'll give you an example. Stephanie Breedlove had a company nobody even cared about. For the first 25 years she was in business. What she did was she did payroll for people that hired nannies themselves for their children. Sounds nothing glamorous, nothing special, not a lot of service offering. She offered one service. And nobody cared about it for the first 25 years she was in business because she was growing at 5, 10, maybe had a good year at 15% growth. But she focused her company on that one service. And no matter what people said, she kept that course. She knew by focusing on that one service and being the provider for it, it would build her value. What got people turning their heads? When she sold her company that was worth $9 million to Care.com for $54 million, she benefited from focusing on the value of her company, not just the revenues. That's really what the owner's metric is. And I wanted to really make sure you knew that and spend our time today together about what those key drivers of value are.
By the way, Chris, just in case anybody has an interest in learning more about the owner's metric, at the bottom of coachingcatalyst.com, there's a resource list, and the owner's metric is one of those resources.
Perfect. It's a great book to read. So what are the drivers of company value? The first one is financial performance. You know, whether you're looking to sell or you're just trying to pay your bills, if a company's not performing well financially, it's hard. So financial performance is the #1 driver in company value. It's also the #1 driver in your happiness. If your business isn't doing well, your happiness is going to suffer. So we need to focus on the financial performance and make sure it's optimal, not just profitable, but optimal. The next thing's monopoly control. You know, we just talked about Stephanie. She did one thing. Why was she worth $54 million to Care.com? Because she was the #1 provider. She had control of that market. Because that's all she did, that's what she was known for. That's the importance of monopoly control. And that's what takes you from just another provider or just another company to having a monopoly on one thing. You know, if you talk to most coaches, you're going to hear niche down. You want to focus on one thing. And the reason coaches tell people that, and most people are resistant when coaches do tell them that, is because they think I'm going to lose the revenue I have. But the coaches tell you that because unless you do one thing and do it well, you can't have that monopoly control. It's going to hold your company back. So cutting all these extras sounds like a, counterintuitive, but it's not. It really benefits your company. The Switzerland structure. So what the Switzerland structure is how dependent your company is on one employee, one provider, one merchant, just one of anything. If you were to lose one person or one vendor, and your company can't survive, then it's not a valuable company. So it's important to be diversified. And I can give you a tip. If you are the employee your company depends on, then you don't have a company, you have a job. It's sorry, a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's true. You own a job. Might be a great job, but that's all it is. It's never going to build any value. The next one is the valuation teeter-totter. What that means is your business a cash suck or a cash spigot? You know what I mean by that, Rod?
Yeah, I think I do. Obviously, you're either struggling on a daily basis for cash flow, or your business is, a steady stream of cash flow.
Correct. I had a company. One of my companies was a transportation company. We were growing at a rapid pace. We had monopoly control. We only did one service in transportation. We did it really well. We had vendors across the country. We were profitable on paper, but because we were growing and transportation has low margins, this month I might get in 300,000, but I booked $500,000 of revenue for next month, and it cost me $400,000 to do it. Now I'm short 100 grand. Now I got to go find $100,000 that I don't have. Well, next month I get my 500,000 in, go pay back that 100,000 I had to borrow, but book 700,000, and now I have to go find another 150, 200,000 to keep up with the growth. So that is a low score on the valuation teeter-totter because I'm always looking for money. It's sucking money. Yes, it's profitable on paper, but it's not cash flow positive. A company that focuses on being cash flow positive from day one scores very high on that valuation teeter-totter. So when you can get a customer to prepay, to, when you get a subscription and it costs less to onboard them than that first payment, and everything else after that is profit, your valuation teeter-totter is going to be very high. The next one is recurring revenue. And it's so important. I want to show you an example of what that is. But that is a model of a business that the money just comes in. No matter what you do, you don't have to fight for more money. You don't have to find more money. And it's how I was able to make that exit from that transportation company and switch that valuation teeter-totter problem I was having, was by recurring revenue. We were able to offer a service that companies would sign up for, and they would pay us every month to ensure compliance of their vehicles. By having that, it fixed that valuation teeter-totter. When I'd have a big month of transportation and had to come up with a lot of cash, I had that recurring revenue that paid all my bills. So I didn't have to worry anymore to go find that money. It was there because of that recurring revenue. Another company that did that was H. Bloom. They started as a retail business selling flowers, but they decided that they really wanted to reimagine their business into a subscription company. How did they do that? They thought about it and they thought, you know, people usually buy flowers for special occasions, but they realized that the high-end hotels buy flowers at all times. They always have flowers in their lobby. And why wouldn't people want their home to feel like that high-end experience? So let's sell a subscription model so they have those fresh flowers in their home, just like they have when they walk into a fancy hotel or a nice restaurant. What did this do for their company? Well, think of it like this: the $29 sale versus the $4,500 sale. You know, when you think of a flower store customer, the typical transaction is about $29. They come in, they buy a bouquet of flowers, or they come in and buy a little candy with a flower, and it averages about 29, 30 bucks. But because H. Bloom focused on subscribers, that same customer had a lifetime value of more like $4,500. One sale, finding one customer, now guaranteed about $4,500 worth of revenue compared to $29. Also, on top of that, a typical flower store throws out more than 60% of their inventory. That's why flowers are so expensive. It's not because the flower is expensive, it's because more than half of the flowers they buy die before they can sell them. But with H. Bloom, they only throw out 2% of their inventory.
Wow.
That's possible because now it's subscription. I know on the last day of this month how many flowers I need for next month. So I order just that. I don't need to order an obscene amount of flowers, hoping I have enough to get through the month. I don't have to throw away too much. So what sounds more stressful? Actually having to guess and pray you get it right, don't run out and lose sales, or don't order so much that you have to throw away 60%, or knowing about how much you're going to sell next month, ordering just slightly more, knowing you can afford a 2 to 5% waste, but have room for growth. What sounds more stressful to you?
Yeah. Obviously, having the recurring revenue is nice, very nice. I actually, one of the things that a lot of people say is, well, my business, there's no way to do recurring revenue. I mean, take a roofing company. I mean, you'd think there'd be no way to have recurring revenue, but I know one here by us that does a maintenance program, and they actually use it as a lead generation system as well, because you get people in on their maintenance program to come out and maintenance their roof, and then it's a monthly subscription. So anytime something happens to the roof, you got a roofer in your back pocket, and built a very successful business and very valuable business as a result of his recurring revenue.
Well, and look at the companies out there now. Some of the big companies, Microsoft, they went from a product company to a subscription model. Adobe went from a product company to a subscription model. Why are they doing this? It's more profitable.
Amazon's king of it, aren't they?
Boy, they love it. And I was watching a video not too long ago, and they were talking about the actual cash payments made to their employees for Facebook versus Netflix. Facebook has way more revenue. Facebook has a much larger market share than Netflix. But Netflix has pure subscription. There's no ups, there's no downs. And their cost of goods is super low. So Netflix pays, on average, almost double in cash what Facebook pays in cash. Facebook says they have higher compensation, but it's all in stock options. Your actual cash in your pocket as an employee of Facebook is about half of an employee of Netflix doing the same job.
Wow.
And it's because they have that recurring revenue, they have the subscription, and they kept their operating cost low, that they can afford to do that. That's why it's so important for that recurring revenue.
I know John Warlow's written a book about the automated profits or automated business.
Mhm.
Anyways, that whole book's about taking your business and creating a recurring revenue.
Yep. It's so important because it helps you plan your resources more effectively. It makes your business more predictable to run. And when it's more predictable to run, it's more efficient, it's more profitable, and it's just less stressful for you. So finding that way to make a recurring revenue business is worth the time and effort. And it's hard sometimes in some industries to figure out how, but if I can do it in transportation and your roofing guy can do it in roofing, it can be done in any industry.
I'm saying, yeah.
So next is growth potential. Growth potential is the demonstration that your market or your product or your service is scalable. And it doesn't have to be scaled in your hands. It just needs to be shown that it can be scalable to increase the value of your company. And what do I mean by that? I'll show you. This is Rod. He had a company that had $2 million a year in revenue. It had only been in business for 2 years, and he was able to sell it for $35 million. So the company he had was called Aftermail, and he founded it in 2004. What he did was found a better way for companies to store old emails. He took that and he went out and sold 2 contracts to 2 Fortune 500 companies, which generated about $2 million a year in revenue. He held the company for 2 years, and instead of focusing on finding more customers, he focused on finding the top dog of that industry, and he found Quest. Quest was essentially a software reseller, and they had relationships with Fortune 500 companies selling software. So instead of competing with Quest or having to go out and find these contacts in these Fortune 500 companies, Rod brought up the idea to them to buy his company. After just 2 years in business, and despite only him creating about $2 million in annual revenue, Aftermail was acquired by Quest for a reported $35 million. Rod and Quest both knew his company was more valuable in Quest's hands than in Rod's hands, which is why Quest was willing to pay such an outlandish number for such a small company. They knew it didn't take much for them to skyrocket it and push it past into the next realm because there was growth potential and they had the customers and the funds to do so.
Quick question, Chris, don't you find interesting all these guys named Rod are so good looking?
I'm telling you. The customer score is the next key driver. And then when you ask people, what's your number one thing in your business? You're going to hear customer service. My customers love me. But there's really a lot more to that than just what you think your customers think. So Fred developed something called the Net Promoter Score, or the NPS. Are you familiar with the Net Promoter Score, Rod?
Not real in detail, but I have an idea of what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
get those surveys all the time where, hey, how do you like us, and would you refer us to a friend?
Correct. So Fred was a consultant, and he spent his career studying what leads customers to refer and repurchase. He wondered why companies with satisfied customers weren't growing faster. You know, if all these customers are satisfied, why aren't you just blowing it off? Blowing it out of the water? Well, what he discovered was that there was no predictive value between a customer saying they're satisfied and the likelihood that they were going to either repurchase or refer you to someone else. So he developed a standard measure to benchmark companies on the willingness of their customers to recommend their company to someone else. This is now used by most Fortune 500 companies, including Apple, Intuit, FedEx, eBay, and Amazon. They all use this Net Promoter Score because they know it's so valuable. It tells you how your business is going to grow. The way he did it was through a lot of research. He figured out there's one question that tells you. And that question is, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? What he saw was there were 3 types of people. There were what we call the promoters. Those are the people that give a 9 or a 10. They generally will come back and repurchase and or refer you to someone else. So that's what we're shooting for. Not just are you satisfied, You want that 9 or 10 because they're the ones that are going to give you that referral and come back more and more and more. So research from 2011 to 2021 found that the extraordinary performance on the net promoter score saw their stock outperform US stock markets by 3 times more value created than the average company.
Wow.
So how do you figure out your net promoter score? Well, we talked about the question. It's just one question. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or colleague? Once you ask your clients that, you rank them into 3 categories. They said a 9 or a 10, they're a promoter. If they said a 7 or an 8, they're a passive. And 0 to 6 is the detractor. So a detractor is someone who will not recommend for you or actively recommend people not buy from you. So those that gave you 9 or 10 are your promoters. They're the core. So the way you figure out your net promoter score is you take the percentage of customers that were promoters. So in this theoretical, we're going to say it was 25%. And you subtract your percentage of detractors. So in this example, that was 5%. That would give you a net promoter score of 20%. So the average net promoter score is 15%. And that is highly predictive of the customers that are going to repurchase from you and that are going to refer you. And that's why it's so important as a leading indicator of the value of your company. It's more than just, are your customers satisfied? You need to know how satisfied they are. Are they going to help you build your business by coming back and sending others? Or are they just going to buy from you because they like you and that's all you're ever going to see from them?
Makes sense.
That's what goes into that customer satisfaction and that customer score, not just, I don't get many complaints, or I don't get any complaints, or people tell me they love me. People tell you about their wallet. Are they coming back? Are they sending other people with their wallets? If not, they don't love you as much as you think they do. The final driver of value is hub and spoke. Hub and spoke is, think of an airline. You know, there's hub and spoke model airlines where they all fly to one hub, you switch planes and you fly back to the next destination. Well, in a hub and spoke business, you are that hub. If everything has to come to you and then go out again, if I try to remove you, it's all going to fall apart. So it's so important that you not be that central hub in your business. Just like the Switzerland structure, when I said, if you're that one vital employee, you don't have a business, you have a job, hub and spoke is the same thing. If you're required to make decisions on a day-to-day basis in your business for it to operate properly, you don't have a business. Congratulations, you have a job. You own it, but it's a job. So, and I put together 8 key things that every business owner should know. So I really want to make sure they get some value for watching our video. So industry and revenue are important, but they're not the only thing. I want you to remember that revenue isn't the most important thing in your business. I want you to focus on selling less stuff to more people. If you sell one service, but sell it to a lot of people, it's more profitable than selling 10 services to a few people like most businesses do. When their customers say, can you do this? I don't want to pass up the money. So as a business owner, I'm like, yes, I'll figure it out. It's not profitable. You just say, no, this is what I do. Send me somebody else that needs that service. Reduce the reliance on a single customer. You know, there's some businesses out there, and I just talked to one that they're freaking out. Over 60% of their revenue comes from this one big client. They were glad to have it, but that one big client is now downsizing. And they know now they're not going to be getting the checks they've been getting. They're looking at losing $30,000 to $40,000 a month in revenue. And when 60% of your revenue is coming from them and they cut their revenue by 60%, now they can't pay their basic bills to stay in operation because they were so dependent on this one customer. So reduce your reliance on that one single customer. I literally had a conversation today with a customer, with a company. They don't know what they're going to do and how they're going to make payroll. Reduce your reliance on a single employee. That key employee may be wonderful for you, but when your company revolves around that one person, and then nothing can happen without that one person, especially you, your company can't survive in the long term. Reduce your reliance on a single supplier. If you sell product or you resell something and you only have one option to buy, if they go out of business or they change their pricing or they decide they don't want to work with you anymore, you're out of business. Don't have yourself set to rely on one supplier. Focus on getting a 50% plus net promoter score. That is the companies that achieve this metric, 50% or better, outperform every other company. Leave some field left to plow. If you try to grow your business and you take up market saturation, you know, Google, I think, has 4.6 out of 4.9 million internet users. They can't possibly grow anymore. They've taken the whole market. If they were trying to sell their business, there's no growth. So I, as a buyer, know I can't pay for potential growth. The best that can happen is I'm going to lose market share. So it's going to detract from the value of Google if they were trying to sell. So if you're going to decide to sell, you need to make sure there's more market and more growth. And number 8 is create a recurring revenue stream. If you follow just these 8 things, your company value is going to go up, your profitability is going to go up, and your stress is going to go down. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, that number 8 is so. I talked to a business owner this last week. I said, look, we need to get some kind of recurring revenue going on here, because it's nice to slide credit cards on the first of every month and have all your bills covered.
Absolutely.
Make you smile.
It sure does. So, well, I know we're running a little over, Rod. I hope that everybody got some value out of this. I hope it makes sense. Definitely click below to get that owner's metric book. It's a great book. It's a great way to introduce you to this stuff.
And we have a whole lot of other resources on our website too, coachingcatalyst.com. Like I said, down in the footer, there's a resource tab that has, I don't know, 9 or 10 of these ebooks talking about different, different things, SOPs. I mean, everything, you name it.
Absolutely, and there's only more to come.
You bet. All right, Chris.
All right, Rod. You have a great day.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.